Okay. Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I mean, it's as a musician, it's a bit early in the morning for me, and I say early in the morning. As you know, it's almost 1 p.m., but that's early
Almost
for
one.
me.
That's okay. Yeah, I think we do our best work. I certainly do my best work when everyone's in bed, the lights have gone down, and nobody bothers you.
Yeah, I always I kind of justify it by a friend of mine that does the YouTube thing. Um, when people that aren't YouTubers would make fun of the hours that he keeps, he would always say, "I work on US time." So
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
that's my justification now. I'm on US time.
Yes. So how's the start of the year been for you?
What are we in? We're in coming towards the
Coming
end
into
of February.
March.
Yeah, coming into March. It's one of those just relentlessly busy, which is one of those things that you can't complain about, right? I
Right,
think
yeah.
for anyone watching that does the live gigging thing, you know that January's usually incredibly quiet because
Hmm.
venues are like, no, we don't need to put music on in January. People are poor from Christmas.
Yeah.
So in theory, a quiet month of gigging, but we're back to that now, and lots of book writing, lots
Cool.
of transcription projects.
Yeah.
Lots of YouTube videos, trying to keep the people entertained, informed, and
Good.
educated.
That's good. I do have one of your books here, which has been a source of great many hours of practice, just trying to get some of my country runs and hybrid picking up to scratch. So yes, yeah, thank you for writing them. Thank you for taking the time out and doing them.
No, it's
I know
always
it's a
nice. It's a weird one, isn't it, when people reach out and say, "I'd like to talk to you," and I think people would be interested in the things that you have to say.
yeah.
I'm still that guy that wants to talk to other people and see what they have to say about things. So it's bizarre to me that people
Okay.
would care about what I have to say about things. I'm just a guy like everybody else.
Yes, do you know that's been a theme along some of the most of the, well, everyone that I've spoken to. They've all said the same thing. So I'm just a guy that I make music. I want to make people happy. I want to make people entertained. It's just I'm just grateful to do it, and thank you. They're thanking
Yeah,
me.
so
It's like
much.
so. It's yeah, I guess when you see a lot of these people, particularly some of the big session people, and I include you in this, is you kind of tend to put them on a bit of a pedestal, and you think that they are probably too busy to want to talk to me, but everybody's been super friendly, super generous with their time, and
Yeah,
you know,
I always will be. It's been several years now since somebody reached out to me and they asked me if they could interview me for their dissertation for
okay,
university, and I was like, well, absolutely, yes. No
yeah,
one's going to see it, but I'm a big believer in the importance of education, and I will
mm,
always give back to education as much as I can. But then the more I think about it, I'm always going to give back just in general because I love this community. The only reason
mm,
I work in the music industry is because I love the industry. I'm very passionate about it.
yeah,
I earn money and then I pump a significant portion of that money back into the industry, buying new products, checking
yeah,
things out, supporting people, and it's we're looking for a socialist utopia, I think, when it comes to the music industry.
yeah,
And if
yes,
the consumer won't participate in that, the very least we can do is, as people that are involved in it, is participate in it. So yeah, I'm always happy to participate, and hopefully that will
cool,
never change.
cool, that's good, cool. So, you said you're a big proponent of education. Did you go to music college? Did you attend a university? How were you educated musically?
I came from what people would some people would call an underprivileged background.
Mm,
I describe it as a sub underprivileged background. So I was
okay.
primarily self taught on the guitar. Like many people, picked up the guitar because there was a girl that liked guitar players,
Yeah.
and thankfully she's not in the picture anymore.
Okay.
And yeah, I was primarily self taught, but I did well in school. I took my education very seriously, and so when I came to playing music, I applied the same level
Mm,
of detail and passion into learning about it. So I learned relatively quickly, and then I got quite lucky in that some of my teachers in school, not music teachers, just school teachers,
yeah. Yeah.
asked me if I'd be interested in teaching their children, and that
Hmm.
was when I was 15, turning 16.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like fun." And I very quickly realised that the best way to know that you really know something is to
Mm,
explain it to somebody else.
yeah.
So I found that teaching those kids made my understanding of music better, and then I just decided this is absolutely what I want to do. So I went to college, did music and music technology among other subjects, and then
Yeah.
decided that I would head off to London and go to the Institute of Contemporary Music Performance, which
Yeah.
was not the smartest of choices, but I did it, and
Okay.
I got a degree in music there, and continued teaching, and I am one of those lucky people that can say I've never had what people call a real job. I've always just been really passionate about education and teaching, and I stopped after university. My education, I would consider going on and doing a master's maybe, but I found that a lot of the old school educational institutions are old school in their mentality and old school in their approach, and I don't think that's the best use of my time now. So we stopped there, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, there's a lot to pick apart on that. Let's start with. So, what year did you do your degree? When did you go down to the IMCP?
Oh wow. It's funny, isn't it? Like how time passes and you just forget how long ago things were. I want to say 2009. It feels like about 2009, maybe.
Oh, you're still a baby.
I am, yeah. I'm 35. I don't look it. I've got that grizzled old... 35 is a relatively grizzled old man. But
no.
I did that. I think that feels about right. But then if you turned around and told me that it was 2013, I'd have to believe you. But no, 2009, that feels... 2008, 2009,
okay.
That feels about
Who was teaching there at the time?
So that is where they were absolutely rock solid, and that was why I went there. So who I wanted was Sean Baxter, and he wasn't teaching there. He wasn't really teaching anywhere. Sean was a big influence on my early education. But the tutors that I had at the ICMP would have been guys like Martin Goulding, who went on to be a personal tutor, and good friend of mine. Love him dearly. But we had like Phil Capone was. I had a lot of classes with Phil Capone, Ian Scott. I think Ian's retired now. Who else? Charlie Griffiths was still there when I first went. Max Milligan was one of my tutors and a fantastic player. Who else did I have for guitar? Was that about it?
Okay.
Those were the main guys. But Dario Cortese. I studied with Dario as well. Ben Lacey was there, but he was teaching the diploma, and I was on the degree. So I didn't.
Okay.
Ben Lacey. I feel like Ben.
Yeah.
Or is Ben? But I'm seeing Ben, and I'm seeing the name Ben. But lots of people, but guys like Phil Capone and Max Milligan really sort of helped to change my perspective on what music was. They reminded me of why I started playing music, because of songs, because of playing and entertaining people, rather than the trap that I think a lot of guitar players fall into, which is the speed and the technique and the achieving higher and higher sport-like levels of things, which was a lovely distraction. But I don't think that's why most of us pick it up. So I owe a lot to those guys.
That's cool. So what were your lessons like with Martin? Because I've had frequent lessons with Martin, private lessons.
Yeah. Well, I say that Martin was one of my tutors at the ICMP. He wasn't. He was. I wanted him to be my tutor, but he was also teaching the diploma. So when I first bumped into him at the ICMP, he was one of the main reasons I'd gone there. Yeah. So I asked if I could book private lessons with him, and I used to go over to his house in Acton once a week, and had great lessons. What were they like? Influential is what I would say, and I'd still say this to him. Like, Martin is still very much consumed with the technique side of things. He loves that. He's amazing at that, of course. Yeah. But for me, that wasn't the reason why I was going to him. I went to him because, well, primarily he was an ex-student of Sean Baxter's. He studied with Sean for a long time. And in our first lesson, rather than delving into technique, he delved into a lot more of Sean's kind of what I call bop and roll stuff, that bebop influence rock stuff, which prior to that, I hadn't really had any or found any decent quality educational material on. So him exposing me to that bebop rock kind of sound was much, much more influential than his legato lessons, which I went through and diligently practiced. Yeah. But it was more so those things that I latched onto and loved and sort of shaped who I became.
All right, that's cool. I remember, and I still remember the lessons that I had with him. I had one fairly recently, towards the end of last year. He's very intense. It's very intense. Yeah. I would sit there when I very first started going over to him, I went because my alternate picking was shit. Yeah. And he said, well, we're going to start off with legato because I think your legato, everything starts with the left hand, and then we'll work into the picking. But anyway, and so he'd set me off for like groups of sevens or groups of fives, and I'd come around his house. He's like, do you want a tea? I was like, I have a tea. He said, right, put the click on, groups of five, whatever your tempo was. And I'd sit there and I'd just start doing these little rolls. And from the kitchen, I would hear him say, fifth beat's a bit off,
Yeah,
roll the click back 20 and carry on.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
fucking hell. And he'd come in, he'd sit back down, he goes, yeah, it's just your third finger. Everybody's third finger. It's just a little weak. Slow it down another 20 and I really want you to
100%.
accent that note. And he said, just sit on that. Just sit on that tempo. Sit on that tempo and that exercise for a week, 2 weeks. And
the thing he's got... Go on.
I was going to say, and it was just amazing how he could pinpoint that specific thing without looking at it. He could hear it.
It's like working with Martin made me really understand what it means to be laser focused as an educator. And I saw a lot of those things that I had in me when I was a 15-year-old, 16-year-old guitar player, where I could sit and practice for 6 hours with a metronome and be really, really hyper-focused on everything. And I think that's something that teenage boys do really well, but as we get older, it becomes harder to really focus on practice. You want to play a lot more than you want to practice. And Martin still has that. He still has that laser-focused dedication to the music and to the study of the instrument, the technique, and he's still getting better. I mean, his gains are smaller as the years go by, because how much better can you get? But obviously I'm really hyper focused on the subject of practice at the moment, and Martin is a huge influence in that respect because he is so dedicated. His educational materials were always so detailed and well thought out, structured, because I'm sure anyone listening to this knows what it's like to have a lesson with a guitar teacher who it feels like they're just seeing what happens in the lesson. You know, whatever we happen to talk about is whatever we happen to talk about. But Martin is the real teacher, and that's awesome.
Yes. Well, I remember I would come in expecting him to have prepped the lesson. He's like, no, I'd never prep the lesson. I'll see where the lesson goes. But if you want to do X, we'll do X. You want to do Y, we'll do Y. If you come in with nothing, then we're just going to continue what you're doing, and I'm just going to continue to push you and see what you can do and see where your flaws are, and we're going to work on those flaws. And that's something that's carried into my teaching. When someone comes to me and there's one thing that is weak, I don't care about everything else around it. We're just going to focus on that one thing until that is sharp, and then everything's sharp. Yeah. And that's something that I definitely took from Martin.
Yeah, he's the man. I owe him a lot. Actually, I probably owe him more than anyone else, because he was the guy that helped elevate me from being a kid studying at the institute, and I was one of his private students, and he gave me professional work. He got me booked on
nice.
IGF teaching courses, residential courses, teaching alongside him. And I probably wouldn't have had the confidence in the industry in those early steps if it wasn't for Martin. I wouldn't have got to know Andy James if it wasn't for working with Martin, which in turn mean I wouldn't have gone to Lick Library. So once again, I have to look back and say I owe it all to Martin Goulding.
I'm trying to get him on, but he's just very busy at the moment. Yeah. So I think his approach to playing music is diligent. He's and I've always enjoyed our lessons, and continue to do so as long as I pop back to him.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about is, you said you're focused on practice. What does your practice look like, and how's it changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years?
It's changing significantly as the years go by. Because I think, like many people that have played a musical instrument as long as I have, as you have, and as many people I assume who watch this have already mentioned it, right? It's very easy to take your instrument for granted. It's very easy to... I said it with Martin. I said he still practices a lot, but his growth is minuscule compared to what it would have been back in the day, because he's learned so much. And I think it's natural that because of that, we play more than we practice. The real kick up the arse for my practice was 3 and a bit years ago. I started to learn to play the piano. And in doing so, I saw, or I re-experienced that feeling of feeling tremendous growth in a musical instrument. And then I had to have that sort of philosophical discussion with myself of, why am I seeing tremendous growth here? I'm seeing tremendous growth here because, well, there is more room to grow, but also because I'm practicing, because I'm really putting the time and effort into practicing and studying the instrument. And then I thought to myself, well, when was the last time I really took the guitar this way? And the truth was, I just hadn't. I put on backing tracks, or I'd set up chord chord changes on my looper, or having to gig would mean like, oh, okay, there's an opportunity for me to apply some of the, because the gigs I do are still very improvisational. So there was a lot of application of ideas rather than just playing a part. That was just the way I was doing things. And then I launched my weekly guided practice routines on Patreon, and that just made me laser focused on the idea of practice again. And I fell in love with the concept of practice. I fell in love with what it was that I loved about practice when I was 16, because you see growth. I'm seeing growth in different areas, of course, because my picking isn't what it used to be, and it never will be. I'll never be Martin Goulding student levels of technically proficient again, but I'm seeing growth in areas that I just had. To describe them as weaknesses would be a massive understatement. Like my ability to visualize chord progressions, changes, being able to, like the ear training side of things, being able to hear chord progressions, listening to a thing. Like I work professionally as a transcriber, and yet my ability to hear harmony is nowhere near what it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do to work on harmony, listening, like oral perception?
I think
find a song, stick a song on, and just try and figure out the chords by ear.
Essentially, yes, but that when you describe something like that, that feels like it's a mammoth task. That because it functionally is. Like when I started transcribing, people are always intimidated to start transcribing because they're like, "Oh, how am I supposed to go about doing that?" And it's like the old adage of the greatest journey begins with a single step. It really is that. Like I can transcribe a solo that somebody's played because I can work it out one note at a time if needs be. And the longer you do that, the better you get at single note recognition, which is what I describe as like my first principle of ear training. But I spent years and years only focused on that single note recognition. So I could transcribe any guitar solo, but hearing harmony was a very, very different thing because I wasn't actively engaging my ear in that side of things. I didn't need to. I was being paid to transcribe a Greg Howe solo. I don't need to know what the keyboard is doing.
Yeah.
But for me, developing my ear for harmony has been, unfortunately, for all you guitar players out there, it has been the piano, because I can do so much more on the piano. I can explore harmony in a greater detail than I possibly can on the guitar. Because the guitar, we're relatively limited in terms of voicings. There are some voicings that we play on the guitar. I don't have a guitar to hand, but they're all behind me. Like the Hendrix chord, 7#9.
Yeah.
That's one of those that no matter the level of student that comes in, whether he's a new kid who's been playing for a year or a 60-year-old guy who's been playing for 30 years, if you tell him to close his eyes and play the Hendrix chord, he might not be able to say it's a 7#9, but he'll say, there's a Hendrix chord.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a really good example of, well, your ears have developed. You have learned the sound of things. You just haven't devoted yourself to that side of things. So it can be very voicing specific. The more voicings you learn, the more chords you learn, the better you become at hearing that thing and automatically identifying it. So combining that with the single note recognition idea of bass notes, if you can hear a bass note movement in a chord progression, and you can hear the overall harmony that's happening, then you can work out a chord progression relatively quick. It's just one of those things that we are musicians. I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to anyone watching. We are musicians, right? We're all musicians. Musicians make music. Music is a sound-based thing. Stop using your damn eyes. Like I've years and years, decades of relying on tablature or notation because I'm a reader.
Yeah.
And it's like, it helps. It can get you to a place, but ultimately, you don't need that in order to become good. And if you use that as a crutch to stop you from developing your ears, you're only doing yourself a disservice in the long run. There comes a point where you need to take the stabilizers off the bike.
Yeah. Yes. No, it's ear training was something that I've started maybe the last year working with my students. And I don't know if it's just because they're kids and their brains are like little sponges, but they're just picking it up so quickly. There was a kid that's been playing for about a year, and I put on, what did I put on? Lucky Man by The Verve. And I just, as the chord, I'd pause the thing, I was like, what chord was that? And he was like, that's a G. I was like, all right, that's a fluke. All right, next one, what chord's that? That's a D. That's all right, that's a fluke. And he got him.
Yeah, because
it didn't have his guitar. And I was like, right, okay, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, you would. But it just makes sense. That's I think the caliber of musician that exists today, in terms of technique, like it's off the charts.
Yeah.
But in terms of oral awareness, being able to hear music and play it, it's nowhere near what it used to be, and I put that down to the proliferation of tablature, which happened in the mid '80s. Prior to that, tablet fringe thing wasn't mass produced. So if you go back to the '60s, if a guy wanted to learn how to play a thing, there wasn't a book for it. He had to put the record on and rewind it, and that was the only way he could do that. You go back to the '20s, you look at like when things really started. Well, I guess the '30s more so with the bebop thing, but just the entire jazz genre. We think of it in today's day and age as harmonically complicated music, but it was learned as part of the oral tradition. You would just copy the things that you heard, and they're playing over chord changes that are happening really fast, and they hear those chord changes. And why? Well, because they didn't have the crutch that was their eyes, and it's so depressing to think of it that way. Because how do one do that?
It is a little bit. I remember having lessons with somebody, and they were jazz lessons, and it's quite an old guy, and he would have me running up and down triads, 2-5-1s, and I was like, this is quite laborious, this is quite boring. And I said to him, is this how they learned jazz back in the 30s, like wherever, down in New Orleans? He's like, oh no, they would just get on stage and play. I was like, okay, maybe we could do something like that. He's like, oh, well, that takes a long time. I was like, I don't mind. I'd rather do that than sit here going up and down these fucking triads.
Yeah, there's you are totally right. The getting up there and playing, and I think when people study the history of jazz, it's you listen to the early players. Everyone's always name checks Louis Armstrong, but Sidney Bechet is another great player to go and check out. Very melodic. The melody is the most important thing. The solos would primarily be quoting the melody to the song, with little bits of melodic embellishment, and anything that could be deemed as improvisational would be more, I guess I should say, that would veer away from the stated melody, would be, well, I'll play the notes that are in the chord. There wasn't that thought of what's the correct scale to play here. Just wasn't the thing. The driving force was the song and the melody, and it's so easily forgotten that is. That's the driving force of melodic content, is the song. Yeah, I think I love jazz, but where it's at now, it's not for me. Modern jazz, because it feels like it's very much about the player. Let me show you what I can do.
Yes,
I like swing music.
Yeah, I think it was Scott Henderson that said, when you play fast, you're showing people what you can do. When you play slow, you show them how you feel. Which I thought, wow, okay, all right. I was just something I was going to say, and it's just fallen out of my head.
I'll give you a second to think about it while I say to everybody, you mentioned Scott Henderson, one of the greats. He has just released a new record. I'm enjoying it very much. There is a track on there called Green Mansion that everyone should go and listen to. It's beautiful, hauntingly beautiful. Scott is playing in London next week, in a week or so, and I'm coming all the way down from Scotland to see him. He's that good. If you have the opportunity to go and see Scott Henderson, go and see him. He's awesome.
What's the date?
That I wish I could tell you. Monday the 4th, I think. Is it the 4th?
I might be able to make that.
You should check to see if it's sold out, because of course it's Ronnie Scott's. So
right.
It's one of those, like, when it sells out, it sells out.
Yeah. I did buy tickets to go and see Jerry Douglas, who's coming over in July, which I think that's going to be pretty awesome. Yes, I remember what I was going to say. So I was having jazz lessons again with this guy, and no, it wasn't. It was another guy called Pete Callard. You know Pete Callard?
Yeah, I know Pete.
And I had lessons to him. I thought, if anyone could get my playing into shape, my jazz playing, it's Pete. And I had lessons with him for about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. I'd kind of go back and forth. It wasn't frequent. And it was about 4th or 5th lesson. I came in, I sat down, and I said, I just don't think jazz is for me. I said, I'm just kind of struggling with all the things you're giving me. And I said, primarily is I'm not listening to jazz. I don't listen to it.
Yep.
And he was like, then there's no point learning it. So I kind of agree.
Yeah.
And this was maybe 10 years ago. And then something happened just before Christmas. I put on the Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald album. I think it's called Again.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. And I was listening to that for fun.
Yep.
Frequently.
Yep.
And that's when for me, that's the start of learning music. Do you
Yeah,
listen to it? Do you enjoy it? Because
yeah,
if you don't, learning it is just a fucking uphill struggle. You're pushing
yeah.
water up a hill. And now when you start to hear those sounds, now when I start to do it, even if I've got a transcription or I'm just trying to jam along to it like I did in the old days, you start to hear those altered sounds that
Yeah.
weren't sitting with me initially, and now they
Mm.
kind of are. And it just gives you another appreciation for the genre.
It happens more than I can possibly keep count of. The amount of people that I always say I'm not a jazz musician. I don't play jazz, but I play lots of different styles of music, and I think like a jazz musician. That's my approach. It's like the jazz player's mind. But people come to me and they go, "Okay, I want to learn about jazz," and you very quickly can tell that they fall into that trap, which is you say to them, "Oh, what are your favorite? Who are your favorite jazz artists?"
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, I don't really listen to jazz," and it's like, "Well, why are we here
Why?
doing this?" And it's because the internet has told them
Yeah.
that that's what you do in order to be a good musician. Good musicians
Yeah.
play jazz, or some of the most technically proficient musicians, harmonically proficient musicians, are jazz musicians. So they go, "Oh, I should learn to play jazz." If you don't listen to it, if you don't love it, if you can't put on, because the truth of the matter is, when you listen to like Charlie Parker records, they are recorded at a time where the recording technology was pretty piss poor,
Yeah.
and the recordings have degraded a lot over the years. So the recordings of that stuff it's not fun to listen to if you're an audiophile. It's
Yeah.
fun to listen to if you're passionate about music, and it's
Yeah.
bebop specifically is like a fascinating period of music because it started to kick off right during when there were the musicians union strikes were happening, so they had agreed that nobody was allowed to record. So there's a years long periods where no recordings were happening, but this music was starting to evolve. So we listen to that stuff as like a snapshot of history. If you can't put that stuff on and go, I want to listen to this for hours on end, that's totally fine. There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But then don't go, oh, I need to learn to play jazz. You don't like jazz. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's the same. I guess it's the same with everything, whether it's country, whether it's
Yep.
bluegrass. Like, do you listen to country and bluegrass? Well, no. So why the fuck are you trying to learn it?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because I saw John Five thing. And so, well,
Yeah,
great,
there's lots of country music I listen to. There's lots of bluegrass music that I listen to. There's lots of jazz. There is a correlation between the music that I listen to and the music that I can do a relatively good impression of playing.
right.
There are also lots of different styles of music that I don't listen to because I don't enjoy them. And guess what? I can't play any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And like, why is that? And I don't feel that I need to be able to play that stuff or that I need to listen to that stuff so I can be able to play it. Like, guess what? I don't really like world music. I don't like Britpop. I don't like. I was going to say gamelan. I guess that comes under the world music category, right? I don't like a lot of Latin music actually. Latin music isn't music that resonates with me. I don't listen to a lot of Latin music, and therefore I can't really do a good impression of somebody that does. But I listen to a lot of country music, so that stuff creeps into my playing. I listen to a lot of jazz, a lot of soul music is what I play.
Yeah.
So if you're not listening, why bother?
You're not learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about is, what's your take on getting better? How's that changed over the years? What does getting better mean to you?
Yeah. My perception of what better means has changed.
Yes.
Back when I was in my 20s doing those things with Martin and doing like residential guitar teaching courses where you'd have Martin Goulding, me, Andy James. You're like, what am I doing here? Like,
wow.
You're that age and you're like, okay, so what I have to do in this situation is I need to be better. I need to, but you can't be better than Andy James at what Andy James does. You can't be better than Martin Goulding at what Martin Goulding does. So to me, better became about being myself, being different, being like finding the inner player that was me, celebrating my own mistakes. You mentioned Joe Parsons, Ella Fitzgerald. I love Joe's playing, and I made a post years ago about Joe's playing, and I was trying to inspire some of my students. I put something along the lines of, the more I've developed as a guitar player, the more I've realized that I've got more accurate, I've become faster, I've become cleaner, and it's taken me further away from my goal of sounding like Joe Pass. And people took that as me bitching about Joe Pass, saying that his playing wasn't very clean. It wasn't. When he played fast, it wasn't. Danny Gatton, one of my favorite guitar players, Danny's playing was really, really messy. That's what's so cool about it, because Danny Gatton sounds like Danny Gatton. Joe Pass sounds like Joe Pass. The things they play are theirs. The mistakes they make are uniquely theirs. So I kind of, for me, Better is about that idea of being able to hear musical ideas. Sorry. To be able to hear musical ideas in your head clearly and to be able to execute them without thinking about it. Not being able to run my scale patterns at 16th note triplets at 140 BPM, running through all of my patterns. Like, there was a time when I loved that, but that doesn't do it for me anymore. Being able to listen to music that I consider to be some of the greatest music ever recorded. Like, I'm a firm believer in the idea that Stevie Wonder is one of the greatest. We are very privileged to live in a time where Stevie Wonder lived, or currently lives, because he has such a vast wealth of music out there that you can study, you can fall in love with, and it doesn't matter to me what I listen to. There's always just something in there in the harmony where I'm like, that was really cool, that was really beautiful. And sometimes it's a case of hearing it and going, I don't know why that was really cool or why that was really beautiful, but I should know. And to me, being better is about knowing that stuff. It's just like instinctively knowing that stuff, not being a guitar player, but being a musician.
Yes, I think as certainly as I've got older, that the line that blurred guitar player and musician is very blurred. And as you kind of navigate through, it's like you stop thinking as a guitar player and you start thinking of as a musician. Finding your little frequency that you get to live in is it's a journey.
Yeah.
I'll
drop something controversial here because I like saying controversial things. Like, our industry only exists, the guitar industry only exists to the level that it does because marketers have been so good at convincing you that you need more things. You need more guitars, you need this latest pedal, you need. And because of that, we have this huge industry around gear. We have this huge industry around the exciting plugins, like people getting excited about plugins. And that's, on the one hand, really good because it means that our industry has become so big because of it. But I feel that it's such a huge distraction because when you think about a great pianist, I don't know how much care they have in the piano that they play at home, but even if they've gone out of their way to find the perfect piano for them, they don't take it on tour with them. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll play whatever the venue has because they're musicians. I think trying to stop ourselves being distracted by the things that we have, and I say that as somebody who has a lot of gear, right? But I'm happy to just pick one guitar and play that guitar for the next 6 months. I'm trying to reduce the amount of guitars that I have because you don't need them all. You need a guitar and you need the connection with the music. Focus on the music. And the more you do that, the quicker you will shift out of being a guitar player and the quicker you become the musician. That's, be musicians, people.
Be musicians,
What's
really cool. Where are you with the Profilers, Kempers, Helix, real amps kind of debate? Where are you there?
I have a Kemper Profiler here that I've had in my studio for, I don't know, eight years. It's great. I'm not going to say I love it. I'm going to say it's great. I am a technical Luddite. I guess that's just a Luddite. I got the Kemper when it came, shortly after it came out, and I booted it up. I saw that it had all these sounds on it, and it could do all these things, and I immediately deleted them all. And I found maybe four profiles that I liked the sound of, and that's all that's ever been on it. That's all that it's ever done. I've never profiled anything on it. I've never fiddled around with effects or tweaking sounds because that's not who I am. And then, you would think that I'm not an amp modeler guy, but I've got lots of nice amps, but I have switched over to a digital rig. I'm now using the Fractal FM9 for gigs. And it's the same thing, right? I got that, 9 months ago. I made some patches on it, and that's it. I'm not interested in delving deeper into what it can do, the crazy things that something like that can do, because, again, I have all the gear. I'm lucky in that respect, but it doesn't matter. The thing that matters is me and my instrument. And if I had to do a gig without the Fractal and I just played through, a Fender Twin, I'd be fine because it's me and the music. So yeah. Could my tone be better? Absolutely. Can I EQ things and make them sound fantastic? Absolutely not. Would I like to have a full-time person that does stuff like that for me so I can focus on what it is that I'm going to play? That would be handy, but people like that are expensive.
Yes. All right. Okay. And so the other thing I'm going to ask you is, what's your take on the current music education, particularly schools and colleges?
I hope you don't have any affiliations with any.
I don't know.
I think they're all shams. I think every last one of
Okay.
them are shams, even down to Berkeley. I think they're held up in such high regard because they were held up in high regard because of the history, because of where they came from. But the truth of the matter is they're businesses. They're businesses. When I went and did my degree at the ICMP, it was an absolute sham. The entire thing was an absolute sham. I'm still in debt because of it. And the quality of education from the individual tutors was excellent, but the quality of the course was terrible, because I'm old enough and wise enough to see the business side of things now and understand that it had to be. It had to be terrible. They had to be able to get as many people through the door as possible. And I was getting the same qualification that the drummers were getting, that the singers were getting. We all had to fundamentally do the same things. We had our instrument specialty side of things, but the music theory side of the course could only go as far. It could only be as technical as the singers were going to be able to pass, which
Jesus
is low level. Fact is, it's low level. Like, we were taught that the seventh mode of the harmonic minor scale is mixolydian with a sharp 1. And it's like, you can't have a sharp 1 in a scale. Because, like, from an ear training perspective, like, you play a scale and you're like, did you hear the sharp 1? Like, that's not a thing, but it's just lowest common denominator rubbish. Because they're businesses. They're charging, when I did it, £3,000 a year, and now in the UK they're up to £9,000 a year because they removed the cap. So they're not interested in having the highest quality students, and it's the reason why now, if you look at the alumni from schools like that, you're not going to see anybody who's doing anything or anyone that that you look up to, because and if you do, it's not because they went to the music school. And this is on top of the fact that, aside from the tremendous amounts of money that you pay to go and do these things, you can I'm not going to say you can access that stuff all for free on YouTube. You probably can, but being able to find it all would be really, really difficult. But if I could go back and do it all again, I would take the same amount of money that I went into debt to do, and I would just study with those teachers, just the teachers.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I didn't need to do an entire class over a period of a term on how to play the congas. Hasn't been all that useful to me. It just hasn't been. I don't need, and I do know all this stuff. Has it come up in my teaching? No. Can I tell you the difference between a bossa and a rumba clave? Absolutely. So what? It's just not. Did I have to spend a solid 6 months not playing my instrument and instead writing a dissertation, despite the fact that that was contrary to what the course was promised as, because the third year of the course hadn't happened when I started? Yes, I did. I had to waste a lot of time doing a dissertation. I think that there are so many incredible teachers out there now that you have access to via the internet. You can reach the best teachers in the world from the comfort of your own home. And doing that, you will learn infinitely more than you would by going to a music school. I know you did an interview recently with, like, Tim Lurch. If you study with Tim Lurch, you're going to learn more than anything that was presented in the course that I did on my music degree. It still bugs me to think that I came out of my degree with the same qualification as people that in the third year of my degree had to stop a class and ask the teacher, sorry, how do you harmonize a major scale again? It's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Come on.
It's big business. It's big business. Ultimately, we make jokes about it online. People submitting bad submission videos to places like Berkeley. And ultimately, if you've got the money and they've got the space, they'll find space for you. If they had the intention of having classrooms that have 8 people in, we'll push it up to 12. We'll get 12 people in a class, because why wouldn't you? Like, from a business perspective, it makes sense. So I think I firmly believe that this is going to lock me out of ever working in places like that, but I just don't care. There are better ways to present education to people. There are better ways to help people in the music industry than going to a music school and going to a music school and being taught by people that ultimately weren't successful in the music industry.
Okay. There you go. No, I mean, I studied at the ACM at the start of the 2002, 2003. Faculty there was just stacked.
Yeah,
absolutely stacked. And I enjoyed the course. I thought the course was worthwhile. But this was, we're talking 20 years ago.
It's pre what I describe as there was an event, right? And it's what I call the validation period. It was pre having a real degree that was validated by a real educational establishment. So I went to the ICMP, but my degree was validated by the University of East London. And that was the way they could bring more people in, because it was, well, it's like a real degree. You went to music school during the period where it's like the old school GIT, where it really was about the teachers and the education. But they had to throw all this stuff in the course because the University of East London aren't going to let you put their name on your course unless you do all the things that we think are really important in an educational degree, like a massive period of dissertation and classes on music history and stuff like that. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's fine. No,
it sounds like you went to the ACM at a great time.
Yes. So, I mean, I didn't do the degree, so I don't know what was involved in the degree. I know that Pete Callard and I think Guthrie co-wrote the degree course. And I don't know, and I know that it was validated by the University of Surrey, which is in Guildford. Right. But I don't know how much influence they had. So when I did the higher diploma, there was no like English exams, so there was no kind of writing skills, anything like that. And my understanding now today that the diploma and higher diploma has reading writing skills because it's being validated by colleges and universities. Yeah. But the fucking school, the ACM 2003 was stacked. Guthrie, Jamie, Dave Kay, Pete Callard.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's the same for me the same for me going to the ICMP. It was what I describe as the resting ground of all of the guitar techniques writers.
Yes,
because I mentioned not having a teacher and saying I was self-taught. I don't believe in the idea of being self-taught. If you learned from a book, then the book taught you. If you learned from videos, the videos taught you. Like I learned from Guitar Techniques magazine, so all of those people were people that I looked up to, still do, and I wanted to study with them. So I remember going through the same decision of like, do I go to ACM? Do I go to the Guitar Institute? Because I think it just switched to ICMP. Or do I go to Guitar X?
Yeah.
And
Guitar X, that's a blast.
Yeah. I settled with the ICMP just purely because Martin was there.
Well, bless him. He's a figurehead in the guitar world. But I enjoyed the course. I thought it was worthwhile. I got a lot from it. Don't know what it's like now. In fact, I'm actually going down there on Friday. I've got a friend that teaches there. I said, I'll come down. I'll have a look. That'd be interesting to see what's going on. But
I do know what you mean. Like, I know I sound really negative about the it's not all aspects of the course that I took issue with, because again, if I could go back and study with Max Milligan, if I could get more time with Max Milligan or more time with Phil Capone, then I would feel that my time was better spent. It was the stuff that didn't feel all that necessary, stuff that wasn't actually in the long run helpful to my aspirations as a musician. Like at no point did we, despite it being advertised in the course, at no point did we ever deal with concepts like playing over changes. But we did have to do very, very surface level keyboard skills. Like very surface level. So surface level that I didn't learn. Whereas now I consider myself, I'm trying to be more of a pianist than a guitar player. Yeah. That's what I immediately go to. And it makes sense. Like there wasn't a teacher there that was passionate about making me passionate about the keyboard. Yeah. So I just enjoyed my time with the teachers that were passionate about the things that they were teaching. The time like learning to read with Ian Scott was fantastic. And I would absolutely like more more of those experiences, more real world music experiences. I don't need to sit and learn about like a 3-hour lecture on Getz Gilberto and the popularization of bossa nova music in America because of that. Like, so much better uses of my time. Do ear training, train our ears, make us transcribe more.
So you mentioned a minute ago or earlier that you're a reader. What is your take? I mean, my reading is okay. I've got a couple of reading gigs coming up. It's not super sharp, but I would say it's certainly better than most guitar players. What is your take on why guitar players aren't necessarily good readers, whereas you're unlikely to find a sax player that can't read?
We don't need to be. And I don't.
Do you think that's out of laziness that we don't need to be, or you just generally don't think the guitar lends itself nicely to reading?
It's both. They're definitely both. That's a good question. It's definitely both. like reading on the guitar is harder than reading on the piano. It simply is. We know that. We have too many different possibilities of ways to finger things, and that just becomes a huge headache of trying to work out how you read a thing when it's put in front of you, unless the notation is written in a way that has all that level of detail on there.
Yeah.
But then when you put that amount of ink on the page, it becomes, again, even more intimidating to read.
Yeah.
I would say that we don't need to be readers because of A, the proliferation of tablature, which makes sense, but B, because generally speaking, what our instrument wants to do in the settings that we play in is we tend to get brought into things by people that don't play the guitar, and they want a guitar player to come in and do a guitar player thing. They want somebody to sound like the guitar, not somebody to come in and play the melody, because then you sound like Hank Marvin. I don't teach reading to any of my students.
Okay.
I'm kind of quite anti-reading these days, because despite having learned to do it, it's really good to hear that you've got some reading gigs coming up.
Yeah.
Despite having learned to read, and I put a lot of time into those lessons with Ian Scott, I enjoyed learning to do all of that. I came out of music school a very good reader.
Yeah.
And I've been working in music for like over a decade now. I've never been paid to read anything, and that annoys me immensely. Because it's that same principle. Like what I say to my students when they say, I'd like to learn to sight read, I say to them, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not going to say that we can't do that. I just asked the question of sight reading is going to take us years of diligent practice to get to a level that is passable. And is that going to be the best use of our time compared to our ear training, compared to being able to hear a chord progression and immediately identify what it is? And if the answer to that is no, it's not as good a use of our time, well, why don't we work on those things? And then when we've got those things down, we can then circle back to the reading side of things. I know it's a weird or controversial position, but it purely comes from that. I think of myself now as like the pragmatic guitar teacher. I want to be as pragmatic as possible with my students, give them the most bang for their buck, and help them become. I've got a lot of guys that I push into like the working professional side of things, and when we need reading, when we look at the situations that are coming up in your life or the career path that you're looking to go down, if learning to read is something that's important for us, absolutely we'll learn to do it, and I will give you a rock solid education that I stole from Ian Scott and William Levitt, and that'll be great, but it's very low on my list of priorities, very low.
That William Levitt book, I've got that kicking around somewhere as well.
The Bible. He's got several, but the I think it's the melodic rhythms for guitar.
Is it that one I've got? I've got the Berkeley one.
The Berkeley Method
1, 2, 3.
one.
Yeah, Berkeley Method. That's it. Yeah, I was trying to get in on the Warner Hotels gigs, and the guy that has the chair, he's like, "How's your reading?" I was like, "It's okay." And he said, "Well, if you want to really improve on it, get this book." And it was the William Levitt Berkeley book, and it's not wrong. It's so going back to guitar players being lazy. Do you think that's how's that with their reading?
I don't think it's just guitar players are lazy. I don't.
You don't think so?
No, because when you look at like classical musicians, I have experience in that. Like prior to, trying to remember the path of my life. Yeah, okay. So it was while I was doing my degree, and for the period after, while I still lived in London, I was dating a classical musician. She was great. She was first flute in the orchestra, and she sang opera. She was very, very good at what she did, and her reading was spectacular up to a point. She could read things that classical musicians had to read. Her reading of complex 16th note syncopations was piss poor.
Right. Okay.
Why would it need to be, right? But the reason I bring that up is because from dealing with the classical musicians as much as I have over the years, because I would hang out with her and her friends. Everybody's lazy to the thing that they don't think is useful to them, right? So they're very, very dedicated to their ability to read, but their ear training and their ability to improvise is piss poor in relation or in comparison. So I think guitar players are lazy when it comes to reading because you can't easily present to them a reason why this is something that you need to be really, really good at. And it's the same with a classical musician presenting to them why you need to be able to improvise. They don't.
Why
you need to be able to hear a thing and just play it. You don't. And therefore, they're going to devote their time to the thing that they really need to be able to do, which is to sit down with the orchestra, have a piece of music put in front of them, and they need to be able to play it wonderfully the first time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guitar players are lazy, but I don't like us getting that bad rap
Yeah, no.
fully, because everyone's lazy.
No, I've never really thought of it like that, but it's I don't know if when you do orchestra pit gigs and you're a guitar player, there is that kind of stigma that I'm not the best reader, and it's not going to be long before everybody else figures that out.
Sure. Yeah, but I'm very pro bring back imposter syndrome. I think there's too many people that exist in this industry, and they only exist in this industry because they never suffer from imposter syndrome. If they looked in the mirror, they wouldn't have they'd be too ashamed to go out and continue marketing the bullshit courses that they market on Facebook. If you are in a position where it sounds like you're talking about dealing with imposter syndrome there, then you're one of the good ones, because you're in a situation where it's like you consider, maybe I'm not good enough for this. And then you actually go, well, I want to be better at the thing. I'm going to get better at the thing.
Yeah. Well, I've got 2 months until the show. I've got the dots. I've had them for a month.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. That was the other thing I was going to talk to you about is breakthroughguitar.com. Those fucking guys.
Yeah. I've now started. I mean, that's who I was thinking about. I've now started, every time I see one of their ads on Facebook, because I now know who that is, I now comment on every single one of the videos.
Yeah.
I like being a thorn in someone's side, you know.
It's
I like being able that thought that there's someone out there in the world that they open up their computer to do a thing, and they see a comment, and they're like, he knows. He knows what I'm doing here.
Yeah,
that's an uncomfortable feeling.
What's your experience with those? Is it a guy? Is it 4 of them? Because I went on their website and there was 4 of them chatting shit, not playing guitar.
Yeah, I don't know all that much. I didn't put all that much research into it. For people that are unaware of what we're talking about, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I don't get ads on YouTube because I have YouTube Premium, so evidently I don't know who these people are. But because I work in the educational side of things, if I see one of my friends' products, I'll click on it to see what their marketing thing is like on their website. And I've been able to point out like when there's been errors in there and help those guys out. But because you do that, means that you start to get marketing stuff from people that you don't know. Yeah. And I was just scrolling through my feed, and unfortunately for them, they're smart enough to know that people don't have sound on videos when you're just scrolling through, so you need to subtitle everything. Yeah. And unfortunately for them, they'd started their video with, many people don't know that guitar playing is really a sport, or words to that effect. Yeah. And I scrolled past it and I went, hang on a minute, what was that?
Nope.
And I had to really see, like, what is it? Surely not. So I made a quick, like, 15-second YouTube short just ridiculing the notion. But then it turned out that people knew who this guy was. And they've told me stories of like seeing his ads everywhere, and now I'm interested by it. Which again, worst thing that he could have done, getting me interested in the subject, because I'll never stop shouting about it now. Yeah. And I've watched a lot of his 5-minute videos on not watched. I skimmed through them, and he just never plays anything, and it's just like, I would never describe myself as a guru, never. I'm a teacher. I'm passionate about education. But I would also never, ever, ever try and lead you into the idea that I can teach you a thing without first demonstrating that I can play the instrument. Yes. Like, always lead with your playing. Lead with your playing, because it's a lovely marketing trick that works to people that don't know what they're looking for. Ultimately, the education system can be very predatory, because you have people selling the idea of, I can teach you a thing to a student. As long as you know more than your student, you look like an expert. So as long as you're 2 lessons ahead of them, you can keep teaching them. And I hate that mentality. But of course, the student also doesn't know what to look for when seeing charlatans out there, when they're being sold snake oil. And I think the best way to dispel that right off the bat is, you want to play music? Well, when I play music, it sounds like this. Do you like what this sounds like? Would you like to be able to play music like this? If the answer to that is no, then cool. I'm not for you. Go somewhere else. But when your entire marketing shtick is to tell the audience, your guitar teacher, the thing he's been teaching you is actually hurting you. You're actually setting yourself back years because of your guitar teacher. Your guitar teacher is stealing from you. But trust me, if you come to me, I can teach you all of the things that you need to know in order to be just like me. You too could appear in marketing adverts where you never play any music. Get fucked.
Yeah,
Hate it.
it's awful, and it's usually sold as the one thing that all the pros know that
Yeah.
they're not telling you.
Yeah.
And I'll show you that one thing. You just need to click on the link below.
Yeah.
I actually did click on the link below, and my email inbox has just been flooded with
Yeah.
shit. And it's going to take about 2 weeks of unssubbing spam
The
to get
reality
rid of
is it
it.
works, doesn't it? Like the stuff like this
It's
exists because it works.
intoxicating.
It's painful that it works, but
Yeah.
it works. And people, I got some kickback on that post on YouTube where people were like, "Why steer into the negativity like this?" And I do want to address that because like my YouTube started to take off because I made rage time videos. I would talk about there's been guitar teachers in the past that I still have legal letters from threats of defamation lawsuits because I was running them out of business. But I did that because I believed it to be right, and I still believe that stuff to be right because it makes me angry when I see young impressionable people being taken advantage of. And so while I also firmly believe that my skill doesn't lie in speaking truth to idiots. I think it lies in education and entertainment. I still have that in me of if somebody's doing a bad thing, it's okay for you to say publicly you're doing a bad thing because it helps people that might not know any better. If we all just stand by and say nothing, then people like this manage to keep a foothold in the business and propagate bad ideology to kids where they manage to convince them it's two things. They convince them that, like I say, your guitar teacher is bad and your guitar teacher is hurting you, but then it also builds a dependence on them. Like you need us, and before you know it, you're in a weird cult thing, and that's so counterproductive to your long-term musical goals.
Certainly. Ugh. I mean, I can't remember who said it, but all that's needed for evil to propagate is for good men to stand by and do nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, like the same thing. It pisses me off because it's just like you said, snake oil salesman. It's the one thing that pros aren't telling you. The one thing that pros aren't telling you the fact that we are telling you is to just sit down, time on your instrument. No shortcuts. You're going to have to put the work in, regardless of what it is you're going to do. The other thing I'm going to ask is when you started teaching yourself piano,
yes,
how much of what you learned on guitar did you kind of, even though I've just said this, not to do this, did you find any quicker ways to kind of enable your learning on the piano?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
My piano playing, as time goes by, this statement becomes less and less true because it's 3.5 years now, so you'd expect me to be able to play the piano relatively well. But there was a point where I'd been playing for a year where I did not sound like a piano player that had only been playing for a year because I've been a professional musician for all of my professional life, I live and breathe music education. So I was able to, I knew all of the stuff I needed to know. I just had to be better at applying it to a different medium, if you like. But the nature of the guitar is that it's a very shape-based instrument. It is unbelievably shape-based. Another reason why I think reading is something that guitar players avoid, because you don't need it. A guitar player literally doesn't need to know the difference between an E flat major scale and an E major scale. It's the same thing to them, just one fret apart. So I think on the piano you can use like quite a shape-based approach for a lot of things. Like if I look at my keyboard now, a C major chord, an F major chord, and a G major chord functionally, shape-wise, feel exactly the same. Just like a D flat major chord, an E flat major chord, and an A flat major chord use functionally the same shape. And the same, a D major chord, an A major chord, and an E major chord, they use the same shape. And all this stuff works with inversions and stuff like that. You can kind of use that as a way to supercharge your way into it. But the truth is, it only gets you so far. It's kind of like on the guitar when people go, oh, well, I've learned the 3-note per string system, so I can solo over anything now. Like, what's that? We're having a jam in B flat Lydian. Okay, give me a second. So B flat Lydian is the fourth mode in the major scale. So B flat Lydian is that's F major. But I'm a rock player, so I don't use major scales. I use minor scales. So B flat Lydian is actually F major, so that's really D minor. So if I play D minor, I'm playing B flat Lydian, and then they just run through the scale shapes that they know, and none of it sounds like music. So I think if you do that, it can be very shape based. The thing you have to understand with the piano is the stuff that you don't need to know on the guitar, you absolutely need to know on the piano. Like for me, playing in B major, the hardest key for me, is harder than playing in F major, and
just because
like
of all those
significantly
sharps.
harder. Yeah, well, you need to know it. Actually, I prefer a lot of flat keys, so I'm happy to solo in like E flat major, A flat major, but B major. Something about B major that I just haven't quite got yet. But because of that, it means that when I learn a thing, and I am a member of a piano website currently where I'm doing a lot of ear training stuff, I learn a thing and then I learn that thing in 12 keys. And guitar players don't do that. So I think you can use your knowledge of the guitar to take you so far with the piano, sort of get you set up, supercharge you, as I said. But then you have to transition into there's stuff I need to know. I need to know the correct scale fingerings. It's important. It helps because it means that you can do the things without thinking then, which I guess puts you in a weird position where you're still shape based, it's still muscle memory based, but you've ended up being muscle memory like this rather than muscle memory like this. But that help? That makes sense?
Yes, no, it did. Now, the last thing we're going to touch on is if you had to learn the guitar again, is there anything that you'd avoid? Anything you'd preference? Any mistakes that you made? You think that wasn't helpful, other than going to music college?
Yeah, I mean, I will hammer that, but I'll go back to that point just for a second, right? So, this is consistent. You can go through. I mean, I have over 1,000 YouTube videos, so you're never going to find it. But when I've talked about this in the past, I have always been consistent on this. Music school was a scam, but if I could go back and do it all again, I would still go back and do it exactly the way I did it. Because it still gave me 3 solid years where I didn't have to worry about having full-time employment. It gave me 3 years where I could learn with a good teacher, and then I would sit at home on my laptop and I would transcribe and transcribe and transcribe. I got to meet people. I got to meet people that were worth working with, but also at the same time, you get to meet people and you go, right, so there's people like you in the industry that I should avoid like the plague. Yeah. So there were absolutely lessons learned. So I would still go back and do that. Okay. And I think based on that, trying to be as philosophical as I can about things and talking about that idea of like Joe Pass or Danny Gatton, who have a lot of messy aspects to their playing. Would I change anything? What would I do differently? I'm really genuinely very happy with where I am in music. I'm very happy with where my playing is. Not so much that I don't continue to practice and try and be better, but I see loads of potential of where it's going, and I like the look of where things are going. And I worry that if I were to do things differently, maybe I'd be a completely different player.
Yeah.
I think that I don't want to say if there's one thing people take away from this, because there's lots of things you should take away from this, but if there's one thing that I want to instill in my students, it's that you already are the best you. No one sounds like you quite like you do. And trying to be happy with who you are as a player and exploring and becoming better as a player makes you a lot more bulletproof to shady snake oil salesmen out there who are going to try and play on your own personal insecurities and your fears about who you are as a player in order to try and sell you some rubbish. Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to say. But then I guess also at the same time, there are things that I didn't take seriously in my playing until much later on, and I definitely should have done those things earlier, sooner, much sooner. I should have started transcribing sooner.
Yeah.
And I should have started worrying about and thinking about harmony sooner, really focusing on listening to chord progressions and being able to internalize those sounds, being able to hear melodies in relation to chord progressions, because I mentioned I'm on a piano site currently, and it's gospel piano stuff, and I'm throwing myself quite deeply into the modern gospel tradition on the piano, which is all ear-based. You listen to those players play, those gospel pianists or organ players. I also play the organ. I have a couple of organs. I mean, you see my Leslie behind me. I love the organ. Fantastic instrument. When you think of those players, their control of harmony is just so far beyond mine, so far beyond where mine will ever be. And they've also probably been like that since they were 12 years old. Why? Well, it's because that's what they exposed themselves to. Yeah. They were just stuck in harmony from day dot. And to me, that feels like the ultimate thing to chase after. harmony. Songs. Right?
Yes.
I would play more songs.
It's amazing how often it all just comes back to songs and music. I mean, I started out on music because I heard songs that I was like, "Fuck, what is that?" And I wanted. I mean, it was the whole Britpop era. So it was Oasis, Beatles, Oasis, Verve, Blur,
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. That's what got me excited about music, and
Yeah.
that's where I started. And it's interesting. When I went to college, sorry, I know we'll try and wrap this up. But when I went to college, people would ask me, like, who are your favourite guitar players? I was like, I don't have favourite guitar players. And I really still, I mean, there are people that I look at, I think, fuck, that guy's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get far more excited about songs and music
Yeah.
rather than guitar players. I mean, everyone has their favourites, but yeah, I get more excited about song. Like, have you heard the new song?
Yeah.
Or even finding old songs, like, oh my God, I didn't fucking know this existed.
Yeah.
That's what gets me excited. Not like, have you seen this 8-string sweepy tappy thing he's doing? I was like, yeah, that's okay.
I do still get excited about stuff like that. Like, I am excited about Matteo Mancuso's album. I think it's fantastic. I'm looking forward to transcribing it for him. It's definitely happening. But also at the same time, if I pull up my Spotify and look at what I actually listen to, it's just not. I listen to stuff that doesn't have guitars on it.
Yeah.
I'm listening to, like, I mentioned Stevie as being like one of the greats. I do listen to a lot of Stevie Wonder, but if you like modern stuff, Gregory Porter, like, give me a Gregory Porter album over just about anything that has guitar on it, because Gregory Porter has a voice that I would like to make love to. It's just, warm, and he writes songs that you feel like you're experiencing someone's life when you listen to them sing, like they're trying to tell you a story, and that connection is universal. And I have to focus on that idea that most people aren't musicians, they don't play music, and therefore the fact that I just slipped a really cool half-whole diminished lick into my solo is completely lost on them. They don't care.
Yeah.
If anything, they'll think, oh, that sounded a little bit weird. Like, he messed that up.
He played some wrong notes.
Yeah, and but like my partner, Melissa, she's a songwriter. That's what she does. She has a master's degree in songwriting. So she cares about the art of the song, of songwriting, and she's a much better songwriter than me, obviously. And when I get to play her music in her band, like a big 11-piece soul band, it's all just songs, and you're like, oh yeah, how magic is this? You understand why in the 60s these records were selling millions of copies, because people they wanted to listen to it, they wanted to hear what somebody had to say. So yeah, listen to songs.
Listen to songs, listen to music. Yes. All right, mate, we will leave it there. It has been a real pleasure. And thank you again for your time.
Absolutely my pleasure.
And I'll drop you a message when this is going on. Oh, my mouse isn't working.